Okay, and as the crowd dispenses the room, we'll move to the next meeting of the special meeting of the Glendale City Council being called for December 17th, 2013, coming to order at 3:17 p.m. We have a roll call.
Council members: Friedman.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Sinanian. Here. Mayor Weaver.
Here. And your report, please.
Agenda for the December 17, 2013 special public meeting of the City Council was posted on Thursday, December 12, 2013 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. First item before you is Director of Public Works regarding City of Glendale Building Facility Efficiency Program, Smart Cities Efficient Services presentation by Climatech. 1A is a motion to note and file report.
Thank you, Mr. Ochoa.
Yes, sir. We have here a note and file report just to update City Council on an effort by the Department of Water and Power and Public Works in terms of looking at better ways to allow for the efficiency and cost savings in the administration of all of our buildings and our physical plant. As you know, we have a number of facilities, and it is incumbent on us to make them as efficient as possible. We do have a couple of representatives from Climatech. We would like to make a presentation again. This is receive and file. We just want the council to be aware of where we are, where we're heading, and we'll be back in front of you with a policy decision, presumably at the late winter, early spring. So, gentlemen, if you'd like to go forward from there. Steve, is there anything else that you need to say?
I have no cards at all, so.
I'll just introduce Frank Mann from Climatech, who's going to come up and give you a presentation.
On efficiency?
On the building efficiency that we are looking at.
Comprehensive building solutions.
Oh, we always love efficiency. Your name for the record,
Mayor,
please.
council members, thank you very much for the opportunity to present. I'm Frank Mann with Climatech, and this is Tom Jackson.
Hello.
Tom and I are going to present to you and then take questions, or if you want questions in the middle of presenting, it's for you to gain information, and we're here to help with that. I have a presentation. Is that ready?
It'll be up in just a second.
Okay. Climatech is in the business of helping cities provide cost relief to their general fund through doing operational programs, saving more than it costs to implement that program, and be able to have a positive cash flow back to the general fund. That's what our business model is. That's what we're doing with cities. That's how we got here today.
So for the critics to understand, we have to spend the money to save money.
Yes and no. There's no upfront cost to the city. There's no out-of-pocket cost to the city. We will put a program together to fund the program or finance it, and the savings will pay for that out of the energy that's saved.
Oh, okay.
Right, we're just essentially leveraging efficiencies in your operation.
Oh, excuse me.
We apologize. Just there will be one more second. The laptop is not communicating with
We have hard copies if we need to have those.
Why don't you proceed on that front so we can keep the program moving along?
Whichever
Council
one
has the hard
speaks,
copy.
make sure you get in front of the mic.
Yes, thank you. Apologize.
They have it in their packet.
Well, they already have this presentation?
Yes. No?
That's been modified. Oh, you got it then. I'm sorry.
We have a modified, or which one do we have?
The one that's in your agenda packet, sir.
That one's in color?
This
These
one's
are in
Would
color,
you like
yes.
the color version?
Yeah, I'd like a color
That's
one.
fine.
A little easier to see.
We know that cities worldwide are being challenged. Wherever you look around the world, cities are growing. There's 1.3 million people per week joining
Thank you
cities.
for the color.
Cities produce about 80% of the carbon emissions, and they use about 75% of the world's energy. Cities do. California cities have special stretches, financing, funding, laying off staff, the challenges that all the cities have. Climatech looks to provide technologies that meet those needs and provide positive cash flow back on a program. You'll be on slide number 2 now, the second one, right there with the bar chart. So what are some of Glendale's operational challenges we heard? We've heard that cost cutting is important. Doing more with less is on that. Modernizing your systems is something you want to do. You have limited capital investment. And with your 87522 rate increases, we know that you're going to be facing even tougher times because you're going to have to pay more for your utility costs as you operate your facilities. But our question to you is, what would it mean if we could offset that increase? If we could find a way to save 25 to 30% of your energy usage, which would offset that rate increase, it would net that out for you. We think that's something that was our goal as we began to understand what was going on here and look at that. Your next slide. How are forward-looking cities looking at improvements? What are they doing? Above the line, you see that there's energy efficiency, and below the line, you see that there's solar power, solar, renewables, geothermal. What we've looked at your facilities, and it looks like above the line is the first thing, phase one of a program would be to look at how to make the buildings more energy efficient. Applying cost-cutting technologies, demand reduction, replacing heating and air conditioning systems, changing lighting out, controlling the environment better. All of those things are the kinds of measures that we'd be looking at in providing. What we've done so far with the city, last spring we met with the administration. We gathered data on the utilities. This last summer we spent time going through all the buildings. We've counted all your light bulbs, all your heating and air conditioning equipment. We've looked at every control system throughout all the facilities. In the fall, we presented these findings to administration, and today we've come to ask for council's support on the program. Who's Climate Tech? That's our next slide that should be there, number 5. I think our motto says it all. We're merging technology and buildings, technology and facilities, to try to use the value of technology to drive down the cost of operations. Climate Tech has done about 80 public agencies we've done programs like this in. We have about 500 people in our company. We're a regional company. We work from Southern California, Northern California, all the way through to Texas is our marketplace. That's where we work. We have local offices in LA, Orange County, Riverside, San Diego, and we're a privately held company. We have private ownership, and we have ownership involvement in the operations of what we do. We did a project at the city of Escondido where we changed their city hall's air conditioning and all their other buildings in town, heating, air conditioning, added controls to control that temperature and space, put in lighting, and actually that had a roofing need, and we put a energy efficient cool roof on City Hall. City of Fountain Valley, we did a project for 2 years ago, and heating, air conditioning, lighting, control upgrades, but it had an interesting story at Fountain Valley. I don't know if you've ever been to Fountain Valley City Hall in Orange County, but they have a beautiful fountain out front, and they couldn't figure a way to continue to pay for the operational costs of running the fountain. It's called Fountain Valley, the city, because at 6 feet you hit groundwater anywhere in the city. If you dig a hole, you find water. And what we're able to do is put a photovoltaic system up on the building where the fountain is, and during the daytime it offsets the cost of running the electricity for that project. Those are kind of creative things we get at, things that make some sense for a city to do. Well, what did we find out about Glendale in our survey? And Tom's going to talk a little bit about, you should see a bar chart with some squares. There we go.
Making progress.
Thank you, Michael.
So let me step in, Frank.
Sure, go ahead, Tom.
So I'm Tom Jackson. I'm Corporate Vice President for Climate Tech. I'm kind of the money guy for the company. And if you want to encapsulate the project in a nutshell, if you go to the bar chart, the green bar chart.
You have the clicker right there.
You'll see, thanks, Frank. You'll see 2 different areas where it says great opportunity and says good opportunity. Most commercial buildings in Southern California operate at about $1.50 to $2 a square foot. If you notice on the bar chart, many of your buildings to the left there, the Perkins Building, Civic Auditorium, a number of other buildings are running at well over $4 a square foot, some of them approaching $5 a square foot. So why is that? And it's mainly because a lot of your equipment is old, it's inefficient, a lot of the control systems and the control technologies just need to be updated and replaced. So essentially, if you think about the program, we're capturing the inefficiencies and the great opportunities, we're capturing the inefficiencies and the good opportunities, and then we're paying for the program, effectively paying for the program out of the efficiency improvements and out of the savings. Now, one of the things that's not shown here that we've also talked to your staff about is your street lights. Many cities, the city of Los Angeles, the city of San Francisco, on and on and on, up and down the state, are updating their street lighting system. I think my recollection is for your city, it costs about $4 million a year to power those. They could be updated, and the cost could be reduced by more than half. The cost of maintaining and operating them could be reduced by even more. So there's huge opportunities within the city to improve, give the citizens a better level of service. In the case of your streetlights, better lighting, better safety. And in the case of your cities and your city buildings, not only would we be saving a lot of money, but we'd also make the buildings more comfortable for all your employees so they can be more productive.
Question.
Yes.
We are doing energy efficiencies in the town, renewable technologies in the town, very aware, and we are replacing electrical and the lighting, whatever we can, but we know where it all is, like you discovered, but it's the constraints on money to do everything.
Yes.
So you're going to offer us a system where you do it all at no cost, and then you take your share out of the revenue savings that's made?
Well, we operate as a design-build general contractor. So essentially what we would do is the electrical portions, the mechanical portions, all the major parts of the project we would put out to competitive bid. We would take the most comprehensive, the best value for the city. We'd give full transparency to city staff. We would drive the project. We would provide the overlaying technology, a lot of the high technology pieces, the building management system. We have technologies for the city of the future that would overlay on your street lighting system. We're essentially the technology providers, the project managers, and the design-build contractors. And so it's an obvious question, how do we make money? We do it by managing the project. There's no shared savings, if you will. All of the savings and all the efficiency pass back to the city. And then we would bring the funding either through a municipal lease, a low-interest municipal lease at around 3% or less from someone like Bank of America or another bank, or we could even look at bond funding. You know, we are a partner with the Independent Cities Finance Authority and other financing authorities. So if it's a longer-term project, we can do bonding. On shorter projects, it typically makes more sense and is more cost-effective to put in place some type of a lease project.
So the city will be putting up funding in some capacity to put the system online, not...
It depends. I mean, in many cases, cities put in no money. They put up no capital funds, and the money all comes from the outside. And in other cases, cities fund the entire project because they have the funding, and in some cases, they do a combination of both. They put in, $1 million, $2 million funding, and the rest is financed over 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And again, the program is paid for out of the cost avoidance and out of the savings.
Well, let me put it another way. We know what we're lacking, and we could do it, but we don't have the expertise required at your level to put all this in. It'd take us a lot more effort to identify and manage and build, install. That's what you bring to the table.
That's right. And more important than that is we can get it all done at once.
And all done.
And because you're probably losing, I don't have the number off the top of my head, but you're probably losing $50,000 a month in inefficiency that's going up the smokestack. So we want to capture that, and we want to reinvest it into your facilities, your deferred maintenance, your older equipment, and just take away those inefficiencies.
Understood.
And Tom just explained basically where the measures are, how they're created, and what they're providing for the city. And this is a chart you have in front of you that shows each of the buildings. And this is a needs assessment showing that BAS is Building Automation Control System, up there at the top. Here are the buildings listed that we looked at, and including the citywide streetlights down here. Then the X's in the matrix show you where each of these measures are going. There's lighting, mechanical, in this column is mechanical, these are lighting upgrades, and this is your building automation control system that controls those. There's 17 buildings. There's better technology to control your space temperatures when they start and stop. You've seen lights as you walk into a room that turns things off and on. Why doesn't that turn off the heating or conditioning for that room? So we tie those technologies together. We're trying to integrate as much technology to have. Your city's done a very good job. You've done a lot of lighting upgrades. You've done a lot of efficiencies and controls. We still see your cost per square foot in some of those facilities is very high. So we know there's opportunity there, and that's what we go after, is in putting that together.
Yeah, so if you look at the total investment, if you look at the numbers, it's about a $7 million investment. And again, we'll bring that money to the city. We'll bring that financing and funding. Lifetime savings are significant. They're almost $20 million in life cycle cost savings. First year savings you see up there on the chart, and the net cash flow. One of the things we haven't mentioned that's important is we will also provide measurement and verification for you after the projects are done. Too often our city partners, they'll go out to RFP or they'll go out to bid, they'll put in a piece of equipment or they'll buy some technology, and then 2 or 3 years later it can often fall back into disarray or problem if they don't have trained staff, if they don't have people to keep things maintained properly. So we will actually provide a guarantee of performance that the program will save as much money as we promised. We'll measure that, we'll verify that, and we'll even have a third party. You can choose a third party. We have third party partners, consulting engineers that can also verify our numbers just to make sure that everything's on the up and up. And if we don't save as much money as we had forecast or promised, if something goes wrong, then we'll actually fund the difference and write a check to the city to make you whole. Now, to date, we've done hundreds of these kinds of projects, and we haven't had a shortfall, but it's just giving you peace of mind that if you move forward with this kind of program, and there's been hundreds of these kinds of programs done in the state of California with cities, counties, K through 12 schools, public entities, and they're very successful.
What else does it save? For your environmental savings, there's significant carbon footprint reduction here. There is carbon credits that would be gained from all the infrastructure being replaced. Those carbon credits come right to the city, either to be used or to be resold on the market. And we also have an equivalence, and those 4 items down there are the equivalents. I think the bottom one probably speaks as well as anything. After you've done this program, you'll be saving the equivalent of 537 Glendale homes being taken off the grid. That's the amount of efficiency that you're going to gain in the city. Community outreach is something we believe in strongly. We'd like the community to know what programs are going on and what they mean and how they work. We try to reach out to them. We do some PR. We send out information. We'd like to put a kiosk somewhere in City Hall that people, if they come through City Hall, will see it, and it's advertising that. And there's some interaction touch screens so they can go and see actually what's saving today and the things that are working in it. We'd like to get an engineering student from the local college, like Glendale College, to come on board as an intern during our program as part of their education, and that's something else we bring to the program. How does Climatech deliver this value? Well, Tom talked about it. We do competitive bidding in this process throughout for all the major pieces and parts. It comes through the California State Purchasing Code for Energy Services. This is how the state code goes forward with those provisions. Tom talked about there is a performance guarantee that Climatech offers. That's a financial guarantee to cover any shortfalls if there were to be any in savings. And the independent review. The benefits, you have a self-funded program. It's a capital improvement program. It's a major program. It's fast-tracked. We would start this program if things went the way, if we went forward with the program, if we were so fortunate that you folks decided to go that way. Probably in February, be back to council to approve a program, have installation begin in the March area, and have it all constructed by the end of December. A letter of intent is what we'd ask the city to provide to us, that they would want to go forward with the program. We will provide a detailed study that has 20 to 40% of the design of the program done at that point. It would have all the calculations for savings and all the guarantee plus contracts ready to go.
I think it's important note just for council that to date we haven't charged the council anything, we haven't charged the city anything. We've partnered and we've invested our time and effort just as your city and staff members have partnered with us and invested their time and effort. So to Frank's point, we'd like to move forward with a program. We think there's a tremendous opportunity, and we still won't charge you anything. We only get paid if there's actually a program moves forward and something happens. So it's our risk that we're willing to take, But we're doing it, frankly, because we know there's a lot to be done here. There's a lot to be done to help the city improve their efficiencies, and so we've been investing the last year to see if we can make that happen.
Just one more question. Are you doing any other cities right now?
Yes.
We've done Escondido, and we have a list of references in there. Escondido, we did the city of Fountain Valley.
What you're doing now?
Yes. Seal Beach has a project going. There's another, this morning I met with city manager at Santa Ana. We're looking at launching a program at the city of Santa Ana. There's a whole list of references and referrals that we can provide you with.
Ms. Friedman?
You do water too?
We do.
We do.
Are you doing water with us? Because I only see electricity.
We've only looked at this in our first phase. If water is something that we want to add, we can bring that into phase one. Typically, our programs go in several phases. We come in and do what the biggest bang for the buck is. Where's the most savings? Cities are usually so pleased with what happens that they come back and say, well, let's look at a phase two. What can you do in phase two? And we pick those things up.
But to your point, we do find that in water treatment plants, wastewater plants, irrigation, et cetera, there are tremendous savings, not only in the energy side, but also on the water side. So that's certainly something we could look into, but as Frank said, we haven't to date
Okay.
here.
That'd be interesting to see, since this will probably be the driest year on record in this state. If we're not under sanctions soon, I'll be very shocked. So you think you can find an even better way, because we do a lot of recycling. So if there's a way to do it even better, why not? Mr. Quintero?
Do we have an estimated cost yet?
Not yet. I don't have that.
The cost of the program is $6.8 million from what scope we've looked at and what we put everything together.
But
there.
that's the full program that would be
Right.
there. If the city wanted to mix and match certain elements that made the most sense, it could be ratcheted down from there if we decided. But I think that the key takeaway that was made in the presentation is that there's a performance guarantee that the savings would equate to the cost to provide the program in whatever form we ultimately decided. So I'm sorry, did you have any other
Well,
questions, sir?
yeah, I meant the cost for the company,
Their cost?
cost for their service,
Their cost is rolled into the overall program.
whatever it is that we
Absolutely. So
make
they're
the final
project
decision
managers
on.
for us.
Have you worked with any private sector companies or private buildings? I don't mean you personally, but your company.
The majority of our work is done in public agencies.
Public?
It just turns out that they are a great fit for this kind of a program. They own their facilities a long time. Private agencies, they may be in business 5 or 10 years. That's a long time, but 3 years is about as far as they look forward. So.
But we have, in the Southern California area, we have hundreds of hospitals, L.A. Community College District, on and on and on. We have a lot of very large buildings, very large
I assume
facilities.
as part of your business, you also recommend what technology to use. For instance, there are different companies that do controls on buildings and so forth, so you actually recommend brand names that you think may be better than another company that does the same.
Well, that's actually a great point. We are really the largest master systems integrator in the market, but we don't push a particular brand. So, for instance, you have XYZ controls in various different buildings. We're not necessarily going to advocate that those all be scrapped. We can come in and integrate them all into one platform, and so that they can all talk together and work together, and it's something that your facility folks are comfortable with. Now, some of your buildings, the control systems are so old, they'll just need to be replaced. But others that have been built in the last 4 or 5 years, we would just connect those in and leverage and utilize the technology that you have. And so we represent about 55 different lines of technology and equipment for buildings. So we're not peddling any particular brand or model. It's really down to staff and what they're comfortable with and what they recommend. That's what we would architect and put in as part of the program.
And you don't receive fees or anything from these companies?
No, and
So you're
remember,
an independent broker, obviously, that would pick the technology you think works best.
that's right. And you would, again, because most of our work is in public agencies, we provide you with full transparency to the pricing, to the bid documents, to everything that we do, so that you feel comfortable that that we're doing business the right way.
So if the total program is about $6.8 million, and we give you approval in February, what kind of money would we have to put into the budget for the coming year, approximately?
Again, so that would depend on what we want the program to be and how we would choose to fund it, either to upfront the cost and lower what the ongoing cost would be, or to have either bond financing, lease financing, some other kind of financing instrument, and we would pay it with the savings going forward. So that's why to the extent that a public-private partnership in this vein is oftentimes like an urban legend. People hear about them all the time, but they don't actually see them in place. We wanted to bring this to you here in somewhat of a vacuum, without a decision to be made other than to receive and file the report, so that when we come back in February with a complete scope of what the four corners of that project might look like and what the financing might be, you have a familiarity with it heading into it. So it really does depend on where Mr. Zern and his team will be and where the Climatech folks will be, and really what the terms that we might secure at that given point in time might be.
What about the school system? Does that come into ours? Is that part of our, they're looking at, or is that independent?
This is just City of Glendale, but that's a great point, because if we are successful here, presuming we are, they may then look at other types of partners in this arena. You can be sure that as we've contacted other cities and other institutions, as was mentioned, the partners generally are institutional, quasi-public, or public agencies. That speaks to the financing terms, in terms of what we're able to get in terms of low-income, tax-exempt even, types of financing mechanisms. That seems to work well. That's the niche that these folks have found. So if it works here, perhaps there's an opportunity with the district, with GCC, with other types of institutional users.
Three major hospitals, you go into those.
And we put up here some of the reference for some of the facilities here in Glendale we've done work with. We work with the community college,
Adventist,
Adventist
yeah.
Medical, Burbank USD, City of Long Beach, JPL.
Like Adventist.
Just in that list you have there.
Yeah, is Adventist, I saw that on there. Was Adventist Hospital done? You've already done everything for them?
Well, as you can imagine, no one's ever done, right? We'll do a specific project, or we'll do a phase one, and then they'll have another wing or other technology that we didn't touch and that they'll want to upgrade later. So,
But they're continuing to use you.
yes, we do phase after phase after phase.
We have a lot of repeat business.
If they're
We
happy
can
with it.
call them and we can get a good reference.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Any other comments?
No, I'm in support, and I think it's a good idea. Should have done it years ago, but like you say, it's done in phases. But I think it makes sense financially and obviously environmentally.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. All we're doing is noting and filing today. We'll see you in February, I guess.
Happy holidays. Thank you.
Do we need a motion?
Yes, to motion to note and file.
I'll make a motion to note and file.
Second.
Roll call.
Council members: Friedman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Sinanian. Yes. Mayor Weaver.
Aye. Next, please.
Item 2 is Director of Economic Development regarding Montrose Shopping Park Business Improvement District Annual Work Plan Budget for calendar year 2014. 2A is a motion accepting the budget.
They have a budget?
Yes, sir. A rather
That's
robust
right.
one.
They used it all on the parade.
Just by way of introduction, this is the annual approval for the work plan and budget. If you have any specific questions, certainly Jackie Bartlow, our Economic Development Coordinator, is here, and representatives from the Shopping Park Authority are here as well. I don't know if they want to make any comments, or we just want to proceed.
Do my
forward.
colleagues have any questions?
I do. I found a question, but in the interest of full disclosure, we received an email from Jim Bates in opposition to many things with the MSPA. I think that he had just general complaints and thought that we shouldn't approve the budget. Now, I checked with staff, and they didn't feel that there was anything in the email that should make us not approve the budget. But I would like, if there's any staff, to look at the email and see if there's anything the city should be concerned about in that email, or whether it's just general dissatisfaction and complaints that the Shopping Park Association should deal with. So we don't need that to know that now, but
Yeah,
at
we
some
can
point.
follow up on that.
Okay.
Okay. So we don't have any questions for you, apparently.
No, actually, I do.
You do?
Yep.
Mr. Quintero, who do you want to talk to?
Well, I have a general question, because in the complaint, the gentleman talked about elections for the bids. How do we, and that's, something that came to mind, how do we generally handle the elections for these bids? Does anyone know? I mean,
We don't-
have the
we don't
downtown
do
bid, the
anything.
Montrose. We're not
They're
involved
handled
at
by
all.
the
Mr.
association.
Dawson could
It's probably a
answer
question for
that.
Mr. Dawson, and they're handled by, that's delegated to them. They
Right,
handle it.
and that, I know Montrose is like that. That also includes a downtown bid,
That's correct, yes.
same way they do their own
Yeah.
fill. You have a,
They put out
That is correct. The Downtown Community Benefit District also holds their own elections. In fact, they were just last month.
okay. Well, let me ask the city council, do you all feel that that's the appropriate way to have these bids conduct their elections, to have them do it privately?
if we knew of problems, then I would say, no, it's not the right way, but I don't know of any problems.
I don't have any problems either, but that doesn't mean that we can't take a look at how it's.
What's that old
The
saying?
alternative would be the clerk's office, obviously.
Mr. Quintero, might I suggest that we ask staff to bring us back some more information?
Yeah.
Because I'd want to know what the cost would be, because I'd want to pass that cost along to the bid. So if it's a huge cost for us to do that, it might not be something that's,
That
acceptable
old
to them.
saying, if it's
And I'd
not
like to know what other cities do and other bids, and just find out what the different alternatives are.
It's two sayings.
We
One,
can
if-
certainly work with the clerk's office and economic development on a report.
If it's not broke, why tinker with it? And second, I believe in smaller government, not more government.
So we currently have two bids, right? Or is Adams Square still?
Adams Square is basically in hibernation.
Kaput, yeah.
Yeah, they dissolved, so to speak.
So we have-
So basically
They haven't
downtown
dissolved, but
and
they-
Montrose are
They
the
still
two.
exist, but we don't charge an assessment because they didn't feel compelled to do that on a regular basis. To the extent you have a business improvement district, I believe the city council is the appointing authority, but the council's practice has been to allow the members to elect from amongst themselves and then appoint those folks to be the board. We can continue that. In a previous life, the bid was governed much like a city commission, and the council made those appointments. We
No,
can allow
right.
them to be entirely.
That's not
Yeah,
what he suggested.
that's not what I'm
So
talking
but
about. I'm
it
talking
just-
about the actual process, the day that, the information is sent out, candidates, I assume, volunteer, and then the actual election and so forth. That's what I'm talking about, the act of the election, not the business. The bid itself has to be run and managed and so forth by its members are paying an assessment fee. And
I don't think the process has changed since 1968 or whatever, since it was founded. So
That I don't know.
we can always do more checking.
all right, well, we're going to come back and we can discuss that specific issue.
Okay. Is there a motion on 2A?
I'll move to A.
Second?
Roll call.
Council members: Friedman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Nanyan,
Yes.
Mayor Weaver.
Aye. Thank you. Spend the money very gingerly. Okay, what is next, please?
Item 3 is Director of Economic Development regarding Downtown Glendale Association's annual work plan budget for the Downtown Glendale Community Benefit District for calendar year 2014. 3A is the motion accepting the budget.
Mr. Weaver?
Yes.
I'm going to recuse myself on this item, even though the city attorney does not believe I have a conflict. Out of an abundance of caution, I'm going to recuse myself.
Yeah, just,
On what ground?
Yeah.
Grounds, yeah.
Like I said, he doesn't believe that I have a conflict, but basically, the downtown bid has a contract with a group that I'm working with. So that's the nature.
that's essentially, and it's not, that contract is not
It's-
related to Glendale in any way whatsoever, but just out of abundance of caution while we're waiting
Out
for
of
some.
an
And I don't even have a contract with that group. That group is working with another group I'm working with, so it's extremely far removed, several groups removed, but
But out of abundance of caution,
yes.
you're going to go in the back room
I will allow you all to
for about
discuss.
30 seconds. Is there a motion on this item?
I have questions.
Okay,
I'm-
Mr. Quintero?
I'm curious about the new farmers market and where it's located and why we're moving it from Brand to the parking lot.
It's now on Maryland, the parking lot across from the Alex Theater, north of the one commercial building, adjacent to the lot that belongs to the church.
As we have...
Right, and I want to have some information about it. I'm not asking you, I'm asking the staff to come and give us...
I'm sorry,
the
Mr.
information.
Quintero.
Okay, well, you keep answering my question.
Because I already knew it all.
Well, that's great, you know it all, that's a direct
Because
quote.
I did
I want to
my
hear from the staff.
homework.
Yeah, so did I. I read the item, and now I want a presentation.
Okay, make a presentation.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Quintero, the bid was formed to do the types of activities that were formerly done by the redevelopment agency, one of them being the farmers market. When the Downtown Glendale Association looked at it, they thought that it would be better to have those spaces back on Brand Boulevard and still use it as a destination. So they have asked to move it to partially in a parking lot that the city owns, and then they're also have a lease arrangement with the church that owns the other half of the lot. They're effectively, we're trading the same number of spaces, so they'll be out of commission. Same day, Thursday from 9:30 to 1:30, and from this point going, I should say, on January 9th going forward, the Downtown Glendale Association will operate that market. They will pay, they will insure, they will do all of the county taxes. They will take that over from what was the former redevelopment agency.
And it'll be a different operator?
They did an RFP, they interviewed the current operator, and they've chosen a different operator, one that is equally experienced in farmers markets.
How about the farmers themselves? Is it going to be the same?
A lot of the farmers will be the same. They approached many of the vendors. I don't know that they will all go over to the new farm, to the new market, I should say. Some of them will, and they had asked and talked about who they would like to have in the market.
And what happens if, in fact, it's not as successful as the one on Brand?
If it's not, they would make the
Have to
decision.
rethink.
It would be their market. They would make the decision whether to continue to fund it and subsidize it. I suppose if the council wanted, you could bring back something similar. But the idea for the Downtown Glendale Association was to have that regular event that they could promote and bring people to the downtown, and then use that as a marketing tool, promotion tool.
Okay. That's the only question I have.
Is there a motion?
I'll move the item.
Second.
3A.
A second?
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmembers Friedman, Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Sinanian.
Yes.
Mayor Weaver.
Aye. Next, please.
Next item is Director of Finance regarding development impact fees revenue collected pursuant to ordinance number 5575 and expenditures by capital improvements for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2013. 4A is a motion to note and file the report.
Mr. Ochoa.
Yes, sir. Going back 7 years, the council has adopted an ordinance to allow for the collection of impact fees. We'd like to give you just a very brief year-to-date overview of the fees that have been collected, which categories they fall into, and it'll set the stage for the following report about any adjustment or acceleration of the rate of the collection of those fees. And Mr. Elliott will give you that brief introduction.
Mr. Elliott.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, a brief report on development impact fees. And an item to note, we had previously accounted for all the fees in one fund, and this past year we broke the fees out into individual funds. Now we have the Parks Mitigation Fund, the Library Mitigation Fund, and the Parks Quimby Fund. And as you can see in the spreadsheets, what the total accumulated revenues have been throughout the entire time we've had those funds in existence, and the expenditures against each of those. So breaking it down, there was in fiscal year 12-13 in the mitigation fund, $865,000 within the library mitigation fund, $454,000, and the Quimby fund is $377,000. And then giving you the total revenues to date, less the expenditures, and I'll show you what the projects that have been paid for by these funds on the next slide. These are the appropriations that have been done, and those are broken down into these different projects of what the total appropriations have been throughout the last several years and what the remaining appropriations are. And this is the mitigation fee. And there's two slides worth of projects that have been funded through the mitigation fee.
Where's the Arts Fund?
This does not include the Arts Fund.
Isn't that also a development impact fee, or is it a different kind of fee?
It's actually an in lieu fee, so it's charged in lieu of a development standard, so it's not subject to the particular provisions of this statute. At least that's been our interpretation of it.
Okay, just so the public knows, there's another group of money that's being collected and added up. It's not in this report, but
Correct.
there's more.
And then within the library mitigation fee, the amounts that have been appropriated and expended in the various projects. So with that, we're asking it to be note and filed and can answer any questions you may have.
Question.
Yes, Mr. Najarian.
Now, we're not running out of projects to fund with this money, are we?
Well, I think there's a lot of projects to be funded.
Thank you.
Go
I'll
on.
move the item then at 4A.
Other questions? Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Friedman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Sinani. Yes. Mayor Weaver.
Aye. Next, please.
Next item is Director of Community Services and Parks, Library, Arts and Culture, and Community Development regarding update and development impact fees. 5A is motion providing direction to staff related to the current fee structure and the method of calculation and collection.
Thank you, Mr. Ochoa.
Yes, sir. You have at this point an increasing scale of fees that would go along a timeline. And the next increase for multifamily units, for example, is set to increase on December 1 of 2014. That would take you from the current $7,000 to about $10,500. Ultimately, you can get as high, I believe, as 14, I believe is the number. Is it not, Teresa? Yes?
Yes, it's actually $15,000 for the full
$15,000,
mitigation,
sorry.
depending on.
So we have a couple of questions for the council, and that would be, do we maintain the current schedule that we have now? And Teresa will walk you through a very brief presentation, or would you like to stand pat? And if you would like to accelerate, to which degree would you like to accelerate? At this point, staff would look for council direction on this matter, but Teresa will give you a brief overview.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Ochoa. Good afternoon, Mayor Weaver, members of the council. My name is Teresa Alexanian, Executive Analyst with Community Services and Parks. On September 11th in 2007, Council approved Ordinance 5575, which authorizes us to charge the development impact fees. And throughout the years, 2010, 11, and 13, there were a couple of resolutions approved that delayed the fee increase and also provided an opportunity for developers through a statutory development agreement to enter agreements where it would allow them to pay the fee in effect and not be impacted by the increases. But the fees have been administered by the Community Services and Parks Department, and the original resolution, which was approved in 2007, set the fees a whole lot less than what the facility fee study showed that the fees should be. The facility fee study showed that the fees for residential developments, for single-family developments, to be $18,213 per unit, and multifamily developments to be at $15,645 per unit. The Quimby portion would be $16,517 per unit for single family and $14,189 for multifamily. And of course, there's also the non-residential for commercial, office, and industrial, and those respectively would be $5.42 per square foot, $6.61 for per square foot, and $2.70. Before you today is an option to review the fees. Oh, and also when the fees were adopted and ordinance was approved, council also directed staff to collect the fees in increments, 50% at permit issuance and 50% at certificate of occupancy. So developers would be impacted depending on if they paid the first half of the fee this year and it went up in 2 years, they would have to pay the fee increase.
Mrs. Freeman has
Yeah,
a question.
I have to interrupt you, but I had thought we would have, and maybe I'm just not seeing it in here, a comparison of our fee structure with Pasadena and some of our other neighboring high-quality cities, Santa Monica, Pasadena.
Third slide, I think.
Is it in the staff report? Because
It's not in the staff report, but I do have a slide that shows.
I can't read that from here.
I apologize.
So it would have been nice to have it in the staff report. We asked for it. I mean, I asked for it a couple weeks back, so.
Apologize.
Why don't you
And also,
say,
I would have liked to see
I
it in
will.
advance of this meeting.
since we can't read, can you paraphrase about where we are?
In Pasadena, for residential developments, the fee per, the fee varies based on a studio is $16,618 per unit. A one-bedroom would be $17,537 per unit. A two-bedroom would be $19,477. A three-bedroom, and it goes down to 5 bedrooms or more, which is $30,761 per
And
unit.
we don't
So
break it
that's-
out we don't break it out by bedroom, we're just by unit?
Right.
Okay.
We're by unit right now, and right now our current fee is $7,000 per unit.
Got it.
So an average less than,
We're way less than Pasadena.
way less
Right.
than Pasadena.
And for Pasadena, 100% of the fees go to parks, so this doesn't include libraries. For Burbank, for a single family, they're at $2,402 per unit, and a multifamily is at $1,777 per unit.
We're way above Burbank.
Yes.
We're right smack dab in the middle
I
of
But
don't
they
think
also-
they've adjusted their fees in decades, probably. That's
And they have a percentage breakdown between the different departments. So a portion of the fees, the portion that goes to parks and libraries would be 52% of that fee and 35% of the fee, and they also break it down between fire and police as well. So that's in comparison to Glendale, and like I said, right now we're at $7,000 per unit. It will go up to $10,500 December 1st, and then it caps out according to the current resolution. But the fee study did show that for full mitigation, it would be $15,645 for for multifamily and $18,213 for a single family development.
Still less than Pasadena.
So let me ask a question about that. So, I mean, we're kind of looking at whether we should increase our fees for development. And my only concern about that, and I only have one concern, and my concern is not that we'll stop people from building at this point. I think that was the concern a few years ago when we kept the fees static going into the recession. That was our concern. I don't have that concern now. My only concern is that if we do this, that somehow the developers will take that money out of their projects and we'll have worse projects because they have to pay the fee. So my question is, does the staff, maybe Mr. Hagani knows, get the sense that that's happened in Pasadena where their fees are so high? And by the way, are the rents much higher in Pasadena and the condo prices much higher to justify that? In other words, does it pencil out the same for the developers because they can lease things for so much more money than they can
We know
here?
that the condo prices and the rentals are about the same as Glendale and Pasadena. And in our experience, the additional fee is not taken out of the materials and the quality of the buildings. It goes out of the cost of land. Oftentimes, that is really what determines. Here in Glendale, the land cost is higher and then the developers have to make up for it in other ways. Once you start adding these fees, they tend to negotiate more rigorously when they're purchasing the land.
But let me ask this, because like I said, my only concern is that I want the best project we can get. I mean, I also want the fees, but do you feel that if we raise the fees, we'd get worse projects, or we just would hold firm and demand what we demand in terms of great design, and we'll get a few less projects, but we'll have just as good projects?
In my experience, looking across the board, the different cities that have impact fees, you do not see a difference in terms of the quality of the projects based on these fees. The difference in quality of the projects is always the design review process and nothing else. No, I do not think the fees will impact the quality of the projects.
Okay, thank you for addressing my concern.
Mr. Najarian?
Are you done with your?
I was just going to point out a couple of options council has for consideration, which
We don't want any options. For me, if you don't mind, I am going to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
I'm happy that staff has finally gone through and brought this forward. It's something that I've been talking about for years. We are a park and library deficient city. We set our rates artificially low after the consultant came in and determined what the impact on our community parks and libraries would be for each unit of new development. This is the $15,000 figure and the $18,000 for the single-family residence. It is time now for us to immediately place these fees at the appropriate level and that we cease immediately the subsidy of the projects for the developers and subsidize the impact that they have on the community. Our residents deserve nothing less than the best parks that we can bring them and the best libraries and everything that goes with a library to them. I am not concerned one iota that this is going to dissuade any further development in Glendale. We're merely asking the developers, with the setting of this fee at the assigned level, which I think might be a little low because this was done in 2007, 6 years ago. I won't get into that at this point, though. We're asking the developer to pay his full share and not build his projects on the backs of the residents, the children, and the library users, which includes seniors. Let's set them at the appropriate fee immediately. And the other added benefit is when the EIRs come out on these projects, there will not be a significant unmitigatable unavoidable impact because they are paying their full freight for the parks impact and the library impact. Every time, the last 3 or 4 projects that we've had before us, the unavoidable impact has been the parks and the libraries. This will take that off the table completely, and someone like me won't be able to yell about the impacts on our parks and libraries because they're paying their fair share. No more, no less. And we as a council it is imperative that we set those rates immediately to where they belong and not subsidize these mega developers anymore.
Thank you, Mr.
That's why I didn't want the other options.
Mr. Friedman.
I agree with Mr. Najarian. I'd like to, can we look into the fee by bedroom? Because the more bedrooms you have, the more people you have, so the more impact you have, or do we have to do some huge study that's going to cost us gazillions of dollars if we were to look at doing a fee breakdown like that?
I'm not sure it would, how much a study like that would be, but it would be a significant update to the study because we did look at it on a per unit basis based on our average unit bedroom count in our units in Glendale.
Well, I'd like to find out what that will cost to see if it's worth it. It might be that we recoup enough money from doing it that way that it covers the cost. So when you don't have to, we don't have to answer it now, but when it comes back, maybe, or maybe even before that, we can have the option of doing that study or not doing that study.
The only thing I would point out, it more affects the timing than the cost because I think that does add another 3 to 6 months on the time to bring this back.
So we can still do the fees, and then at the future date, we could look at expanding them to do this kind of a spread, which I don't want to hold this up.
Right.
So I guess I would support moving forward with increasing the fees, because I agree with Mr. Najarian. I think at the time when the recession happened and we didn't want to implement them because we really wanted to make sure that we had jobs going and we had growth in the city, I think it was the right decision. But I think now we have a good amount of development happening. I'm not worried about having less development. I think we're at a good place right now. If we don't have it anymore, it's okay, and if we have more, it's fine too. But I think we need to make sure that we're mitigating those impacts. So I would agree with moving forward.
Before Mr. Sinani, before Mr. Quintero, Mr. Chagani, would you like to respond? I'd like to hear what you want to say.
No, I think Councilwoman Friedman mentioned that in the future reports we can address that. I thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Quintero.
Okay, well, to the issue of subsidies, I disagree that we in any way subsidize these private sector developers. They are in the downtown with small units, and I don't believe that the people, the demographics using those units are going to particularly be out looking for parks. They're moving to the downtown because they like the downtown environment. I'm not opposed to raising fees, but I just wanted to get my opinion on the record. Then in terms of fees by bedroom, what concerns me there is that developers will absolutely start looking for one-bedrooms and studios. If you look at the difference between a one-bedroom and a two, there's not that much difference. If you have to pay a fee that's substantial for the two bedrooms, then I think we're going to get more one bedrooms. And then finally, let me just say that I think this is definitely going to have an impact on the smaller developers that are building 6, 8, 10 units. I don't think it's going to have much of an impact on developers that are building larger units, although I think that era is over, as I've been mentioning for a while. The big parcels of land are pretty well taken in the downtown, so I don't think we're going to have too many large, apartment buildings being built in the immediate future.
Mr. Sinoni.
I also had a question. When I heard Councilman Najarian talk about the subsidies, to be honest, I didn't understand what subsidies were being referred to. But I guess we're talking about some indirect subsidies.
So what I meant is that there was a study done in 2007 indicating what the impact on the community was for each unit that was placed. In other words, the park space is going to be, the use is going to be intensified. So to keep it at the current level of park space per unit or per person, the fees were developed to indicate it would cost that much more to split between the parks and the libraries, to just keep it at that same level of usage and intensity. So when we charge less than that, the city is bearing the burden for the costs to create that, rather than giving that burden to the true people that created the burden, which are the developers. So when I said subsidy, I mean, we're not actually taking cash out of our pockets and giving it to them, but it is an indirect subsidy.
Thank you for that explanation. That was very helpful. In terms of the bedroom breakdown, I'm very hesitant to look favorably upon that, because already in this last stage of development that downtown Glendale specifically has undergone, we've approved so many, and not me necessarily, but we as collectively have approved so many small units where families can't possibly fit there, and I'm not sure why we're sort of cornering the market and making it artificially unfriendly to families. Having a bedroom structure would encourage developers to look at small or one-bedroom studio units. Those would be more attractive just because of the cost involved. So I'm not sure. I would be willing to vote for that. Just to clarify, those units, those developments that are in progress now would not fall under whatever change we implement, right? There would be no retroactivity, because I think it would be a notice issue. It would be unfair to people who've basically done their math and moved forward with the project, and now all of a sudden we go, surprise.
Our recommendation would be to actually start a brand new breaking point that for projects that have not been to stage 1 design review.
Right.
That would be a way of communicating to the development community that if you are going to do, then as of now, these apply.
Okay. Thank you. But otherwise, as a matter of principle, I think this is a different. It's different from we're in a different time. It's not 2007. We do have a lot of development, and looking at the prices in not Burbank but Pasadena, and considering how much development Pasadena underwent in the last 10 years, probably we're not going to be impacting the rate of development, other than, as Councilmember Quintero pointed out, land not being available anymore in Glendale.
Okay, if there's no more questions, there's a motion. I think my colleagues all better look at the motion.
If I may, just to provide a little bit of context and direction, I know Teresa had additional comments. There was a couple other options that she had put in the report.
That's what I'm leading to. The motion in the back has about 7 options, and that's why I'm asking my colleagues to look.
So preliminarily, it sounds like one of the directions is going to be to bring back the resolution to increase the fee to the maximum amount allowable under the study. The other issue had to do with the timing of the payment of the fee, whether the council wanted to continue to, by code, allow the practice of allowing developers who paid all the fee up front rather than split it 50-50 at building permit and certificate of occupancy, to pay it up front. Now, if you increase it to the maximum amount, that becomes less of an issue because everybody is paying the same fee, whether they're paying it at the beginning or at the end of the project. The council also has the discretion to require that it all be paid up front at the time of building permit issuance. Generally, the law is that, as it relates to development impact fees, is that you have to, the fee can only be charged at the time of certificate of occupancy unless the city has a capital improvement plan showing how it's going to spend those projects. And in that case, it can charge it at the beginning of the project, at the time it pulls a building permit. When the council adopted this ordinance, it made a policy decision to collect 50% at the building permit stage and 50% at the certificate of occupancy. But the council can provide direction to say we want it to all be collected at building permit, or we want to continue the current way it's paid. It's certainly up to the council to provide that discretion to us.
Let me ask you, can I ask you a question about that?
Ms. Friedman.
How often do developers pull building permits but not complete the project? Have any idea? I mean, in our city, I've seen it happen in other places, but has it happened here?
It hasn't, only I don't.
Yes.
To date, we've had maybe 2 refunds that were developers that weren't able to complete the project and canceled within a year of fee payment.
Probably smaller projects, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Agane.
Yes. However, there is the 50-50% and 50% at the beginning, 50% at the end has caused some confusion in the past because for example, of the economic recession, there were people who had who had gotten their entitlements, paid 50%, but then had to delay the construction period for a later time, and then the fee was going to be increasing, and that was not in their original pro forma. So that does cause some confusion if we make it mandatory, the 50% split. So that's why the options in front of you were provided for you, so that we could make it a little bit more flexible, either by whatever fee they pay at the beginning will be the same at the end, or some other way so that people are not in this limbo period where the fees increase that they did not account for in their pro forma.
So your recommendation is either to make it to where if it's 50-50 that we say we're not going to change it on you midstream, whatever you pay up front, you pay that again at the end, regardless of if we've changed the fees, which I think is fair, or say pay at the end whatever the current fee, whatever the fee is when you go through plan check?
Whenever the fee is prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy.
I think it's a good idea to change the ordinance and pick one of those two as opposed to what we're doing now, because I remember when that happened, and it was a discussion that we really shouldn't have been having. So I'm fine with either one of those.
But if we do the 50-50 and we do it equal, we're not going to change it on you midstream, doesn't that indirectly encourage, or discourage them from completing projects in a timely manner? And it's unfair because, if it's by their choosing or by their failure to act for them to have stayed within a time period within which the fee wouldn't change, then it's their problem.
Well, in our experience, if they paid 50%, they were not going to abandon the project. That was enough of an expression of commitment. If they didn't, maybe. But if they actually paid 50%, they still had the intention of building the project.
Well, I'm not worried about them abandoning the project. I'm worried about them slacking or not being ready to complete the project in the first place and just taking too long.
I think our experience has been to the extent that time is money for them, that once they get that construction loan and they need to get this thing done to get the permanent financing.
And also our entitlements and our permits have a lifetime, that there's a lifespan within which they need to act. So to us, that's not the biggest concern. And as the city attorney mentioned, if you go to the maximum amount, the issue of the 50% now and 50% later will also be moot, because the fee will be the same either way.
And I think the staff's preference would be to collect at the time of building permit issuance, and you get the money sooner. And we're allowed by law to collect 100% of it at the time of building permit issuance.
So what is staff recommending?
Well, my understanding just is that have it all collected at the time of building permit issuance.
100% up front?
Yes. Correct.
Mr. Quintero?
Yeah, I agree. 100% up front is the cleanest. Now, let me ask, in terms of when we do the assessment, so to speak, how does that work? We, earlier in the day, approved a project there in the downtown. That project hasn't been in front of design review or
No, it has.
And,
It has.
oh, it has?
Yes, it has, yes.
The bright
yeah.
shining line would be stage 1 design review.
Right.
So stage one design
Stage
review.
one design review.
So anyone out there listening to this telecast
sound
knows that they need to get in front of.
Yes, as soon as we have the number of units and the square footage, because these are the things that we will be using in our calculation, and we have those by stage 1 design review,
Okay.
which is the
All
scope
right,
of the
that's fair.
environmental review.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, any other things in this motion that we have to consider?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Fee studies
So again, I
out.
think we need direction to
Set at the-
bring back an amendment to the fee resolution to increase the amount of the fee to the full fee amount identified in the study, that the fee be collected 100% at building permit issuance, and that it apply to any project that hasn't received a stage 1.
In other words, accelerate the current phase-in
Correct.
schedule.
And then that'll have to come back at the beginning of the, oh, it has not applied for stage 1. I'm sorry, is it hasn't applied for stage 1 as of today, or when we bring back the amendment?
When we pass the ordinance, when
Okay.
the ordinance is acted on, if they have not applied for stage 1.
I'm not sure I got all that in my head.
So I will make that motion,
Okay.
those 3 points.
Right.
Second.
Accelerate the full fee, due upon building permit, and applying to projects that have
Have
not
not applied for
yet
stage 1.
applied for stage 1.
Yeah, do not have a complete application for stage 1. And then, just for a little housekeeping, when we bring back this amendment, we do need to do it's not a new study, but we need to just review the land value survey and the construction cost indicators. It's a process built into our code just to make sure when we bring that increase to you, that the land values and the construction costs upon which the study were based haven't fluctuated too wildly in a manner that will cause these fees to be excessive. So we'll do that as part of this process.
I will make that motion.
Second?
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Friedman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sinanian,
Yes.
Mayor Weaver.
Aye. Thank you. And what is next? You
Six
want to
is the-
read number
Item
6 in the
Public
record?
hearing, Director of Community Development. This was continued from December 10, 2013, regarding proposed public storage project to be located at 5500 San Fernando Road. We require a motion, continue the matter to a joint city council and successor agency meeting to be held on Tuesday, January 21st, 2014, without further public notice.
Could just as well have stated the next council meeting that we have, which will be a month from now. So, okay, roll call on that?
Councilmembers Friedman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sinanian,
Yes.
Mayor Weaver.
All right. So people at home do not plan on turning in at 3 o'clock for us until January 21st of next year.
Is it closed?
We'll close the Glendale City Council meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Stand adjourned at 4:25. Now, may we have a roll call for closed session?